supermarket chain, says he bought the media company with his own funds. He has been free while appealing the conviction, though it was upheld by Panama's Supreme Court on Friday. Panama's constitution bans anyone with a conviction carrying a prison sentence of 5 or more years from running for office. The nation's electoral tribunal will now have to rule whether Martinelli is eligible to participate in the election, where he is one of the most popular candidates. In a recent poll by Equa Analytic, about a third of those surveyed said they would vote for Martinelli, giving him a 9-point lead over his closest rival, Martin Torrijos. Martinelli has been involved in several corruption cases since he left office in 2014. Last year, the U.S. government barred him and his immediate family from entering the country, alleging he had been involved in significant corruption. A diplomatic rift between Ecuador and Russia appeared to intensify over the weekend after the European nation decided to ban some imports of bananas from Ecuador. The two countries have been at loggerheads recently after Ecuador decided to transfer some of its old Russian military equipment to the United States in exchange for $200 million in new military gear. On Saturday, Russia's Federal Agency for Veterinary and Phytosanitary Controls announced it was banning imports from 5 Ecuadorian banana companies, claiming that a disease had been found in previous shipments of their fruit. Ecuador is the world's leading banana exporter, with sales worth around $3.5 billion in 2022. Around a fifth of annual sales goes to Russia. Russia's decision to ban some banana imports came after President Daniel Noboa announced in January that Ecuador would transfer several tons of old Russian-made military equipment to the United States. Noboa said the equipment was no longer usable and described it as scrap metal that would be replaced with new equipment needed to fight the drug gangs which have been terrorizing the country. Russia's foreign ministry protested Noboa's decision, saying that it violated a contract which stipulated that Ecuador could not sell the equipment to third parties without Russia's consent. President Nayib Bukele of El Salvador, who is credited with cracking down on gangs in the Central American nation, says he has been re-elected. The 42-year-old took to social media to say he had won 85% of the vote, but this has yet to be confirmed. Mr. Bukele was allowed to stand for a second term by the Constitutional Court. His popularity soared following a crackdown on crime that has transformed the country's security situation. El Salvador has gone from one of the most violent countries in the world to one of the safest in Latin America today. Mr. Bukele, former mayor of the capital San Salvador, has described himself as the world's coolest dictator. Ahead of Sunday's vote, he told voters that his achievements could be reversed if he was not re-elected. At least 112 people have been killed by forest fires in Chile's Valparaiso region, local authorities have said. Gabriel Boric declared a state of emergency and said he would make all necessary resources available to tackle the situation. It is believed that Chile's deadliest forest fire on record. Many of those affected were visiting the coastal region during the summer holidays. A health alert was put in place in Valparaiso by the health ministry. The ministry called for the suspension of elective surgeries and authorized temporary field hospitals to be set up. Medicine students nearing the end of their studies will be hired to help ease pressures on the health service, the ministry announced in the same statement. Rescue services have struggled to reach the most badly affected areas, and Interior Minister Carolina Toher said the death toll would reach much higher figures in the coming hours. The Chilean government has urged people not to travel to the areas hit by the fires. Australian writer Yang Kengjun has been given a suspended death sentence by a Chinese court 5 years after he was arrested and accused of spying. The sentence may be commuted to life imprisonment after 2 years, according to Australian officials. Dr. Yang, a scholar and novelist who blogged about Chinese state affairs, denies the charges, which have not been made public. The Australian government says it is appalled by the outcome. Foreign Minister Penny Wong has summoned China's ambassador to Australia for an explanation, and on Monday said the government would be communicating its response to Beijing in the strongest terms. We have consistently called for basic standards of justice, procedural fairness, and humane treatment for Dr. Yang in accordance with international norms and China's legal obligations, she said in a statement. All Australians want to see Dr. Yang reunited with his family. We will not relent in our advocacy. Australian officials have previously raised concerns about his treatment. But China's foreign ministry has warned them not to interfere in the case and to respect the nation's judicial sovereignty. Dr. Yang's supporters have described his detention as political persecution. He is punished by the Chinese government for his criticism of human rights abuses in China and his advocacy for universal values such as human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. His friend, Sydney academic Feng Chongyi, told the press in a statement. Dr. Yang, who previously worked for China's Ministry of State Security, was nicknamed the democracy peddler, but his writings often avoided direct criticisms of the government. He was living in New York but traveled to Guangzhou in January 2019 with his wife and her child, both Chinese citizens, on a visa run when he was intercepted at the airport. The 58-year-old's case has mostly unfolded behind closed doors since then, including a secret trial in 2021. One of Australia's most revered Aboriginal leaders, Lowitja Odunagu, has died aged 91. Dr. Odunagu spent her life advocating for the health and rights of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. She received some of the nation's top honours for her pioneering work and in 1984 was named Australian of the Year. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is among those who have paid tribute to her as a figure of grace and moral clarity. She had an abiding faith in the possibility of a more united and reconciled Australia, despite enduring discrimination from the earliest days of her life, he said in a statement. Lowitja Odunagu was one of the most remarkable leaders this country has ever known, he added. Dr. Odunagu's family said the Yankushara woman died peacefully on Sunday in Adelaide and that she would be remembered for all the doors she opened, an argument she fought and won. Born in a remote corner of South Australia in 1932, Dr. Odunagu was removed from her Aboriginal mother at the age of 2 as part of a series of now infamous policies aimed at assimilating Aboriginal children into white families. 30 years went by before the two were finally reunited. She became the first Aboriginal nurse in South Australia after challenging a decision to ban her from completing training because of her heritage. After a decade of nursing, she then began a lengthy career in the public service, helping create and lead key Indigenous bodies and becoming the first Aboriginal person to address the UN General Assembly. In that speech in 1992, Dr. Odunagu advocated for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to be recognized in Australia's constitution as the continent's original inhabitants, a reform brought to a referendum last year but defeated. In a fiery exchange at the birthplace of a modern New Zealand, Indigenous leaders on Monday strongly criticized the government's approach to Maori ahead of the country's National Day. The holiday, known as Waitangi Day, is held on February 6 to mark the anniversary of the Treaty Waitangi, a foundation document signed by British colonists and Maori chiefs in 1840 that establishes and guides the relationship between New Zealand's government and its indigenous population. Prime Minister Christopher Luxon and other members of the right-leaning coalition government visited the historic treaty grounds for a public meeting with Maori leaders on Monday. The gathering unfolded amid months of protests against the government's proposal to review the treaty and implement potential changes to how it affects modern laws. After winning the election in October last year, Luxon's National Party-led government foreshadowed policies to roll back the use of Maori language and Maori-specified public services and redefine the impact of the treaty on the legal system. The policy proposals have sparked nationwide Maori protests, which culminated in a call for unity from the Maori king through a rare royal proclamation in December. A local Maori tribe welcomed Luxon on Monday with a spirited haka, a traditional dance or challenge, accompanied by a chant, a song, before Maori speakers urged the government to change its course. Our sneaky strategy is to say it's time and time again in every forum so that it catches your conscious and subconscious, that is, to protect the Treaty of Waitangi, said Raihi Papa, a Maori leader. Several thousand people attended the event, with some reportedly holding signs splattered with fig blood, urging the government to honor the treaty. Luxon said the treaty remains an important part of the country's future and called on all New Zealanders to value our differences. The treaty is our past, present, and future. It has shaped the country we have become, and the obligation it imposes on both sides will always be with us, he said on Monday. However, we must aspire to go forward, not as two sides, but together as New Zealanders, because there is more that unites us than divides us, added. And that's the international news for today. Before we go, another look at the major stories. From Senegal, lawmakers to debate presidential election postponement. From Yemen, U.S. to carry out more strikes against Houthi rebels. From Pakistan, militants attack police stations, killed 10 officers. From Russia, cosmonaut Oleg Kononenko breaks world record. From the United States, I will impose more tariffs on Chinese goods, Trump. From Australia, Chinese court gives Heng Jog suspended death sentence. I am Valentina Lawrence. Thank you for watching. You can follow us on all our social media platforms on X Atlantic.net, Facebook and YouTube Atlantic Television Network, Instagram Atlantic TV Network. Do remember that peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Thank you. Have a lovely afternoon.